Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night live Kudos. My name is Matt Allen. I am the founder of Kudos, and my tagline is "You are the miracle." And this evening is a slightly different show. It's a little bit of an opportunity for people to find out a bit about me. I imagine that most people in the audience this evening, and maybe if you're watching at a later point, you know who I am and you know a little bit about what I do. If you don't know about Kudos, if you're a little bit confused about the whole thing, because some people don't know quite what I do, by all means, get in touch with me. You'll find me on LinkedIn. If you're watching this, then you probably come through LinkedIn. If you haven't, I have no idea how you've got in here, but well done. Like I say, this evening's a little bit different. Usually I have some of my brothers, my friends with me, some wonderful people that I trust and hold very dear to me. This evening I've given them the night off because I think it's time that they had a night off. They probably had enough of sitting through listening to me gibbering on about nonsense, but it's nice of a few of them to be along anyway. My good friend Jason is not able to join us this evening. He's had a bit of a power issue, so he's not able to come along. But I have some other people waiting in the green room. I'll try not to take all evening telling you some stuff about me. I was a little bit not worried or fearful or scared. I just wasn't sure how best to do this evening. And I've sort of flip-flopped around a little bit because I wasn't sure, should I get somebody to ask me some questions or should I just do a monologue? I thought, well, monologues are what I do. I'm quite handy at talking with people. So if it's just me in the room, then I can talk with myself. So let's get started. I am Matt Allen. I am 48 years old, and I have potentially one of the biggest ideas that has ever existed, the biggest change to business, the biggest change to the way that business is done, not only in the sense of what my direct business is, in the sense of Kudos, but in the sense of some other markets, some other things that it can alter and change, some very big solutions to some of the problems that exist in our world today. I believe in solutions, not in problems. And my life has been about surviving, even though at some points I haven't wanted to. Yet still I survive, and still I'm here, and there is a reason for that. So, some of you might have seen one of my videos that I did. Well, really, mate, you need to tell people your story. I didn't have long to produce that video, and I'm not very good at the videos, to be perfectly honest. And I don't have many photos of when I was younger, and a lot of it comes from the photos that I did have and the information surrounding those photos, I guess. So this is turning into a talk about Kudos in the sense that it's all very vague and nobody really knows what I'm talking about until I get deeper into it. So let's get deeper into it. I grew up in various places around the UK, mostly in the Northwest until I was 10. And then I moved down to London when I was 10, moved out of London and a little bit all around the country after I was about 21. So I went to an all-boys school in a quite affluent part of London, but I lived in a quite rough part of London. My parents were both very religious, both Christian. I had one brother. Yeah, life was not fun, really, I guess, because most of my life was spent either at school or going to church or being punished for not being a very good boy. So I tended to try and think of ways to solve that problem because I didn't see me as being bad as much as what they did. So I started off young trying to figure out a solution to a big problem because at the age of 8, 10, 12, 16, try and figure out a big problem like how on earth am I going to leave these people that I can't escape from. I talk about religion a little bit because religion played a big part in my life for a long time when I was young. Like I say, we went to church quite a lot. We went to a very specialized sort of church. It's called a Brethren church, not Plymouth Brethren, just Brethren. And I'm sure that there was some very wonderful people there with the right intentions, but my experience of church and Christianity and the way that it was portrayed as being about love and peace and joy was not about love and peace and joy, because my experience was very different to that as a person. And that caused me to ask questions. That caused me to think about the bigger things in life. And over time, there was some bad things happened to me from some of the people who were in that church, and not very far removed from me. And some of those things were very difficult for anybody to deal with, really. So it was a time of, like I say, trying to find solutions, trying to find ways to escape. Some of those escapes were to withdraw into myself. Some of those escapes were trying to get work when I was 13 and not just go out for a Saturday job, but by the age of 14, I was working on top of school, maybe an extra 25, 30 hours a week. By the age of 16, some people know this already, I was doing fishmongering at a local supermarket from about 6 a.m. in the morning. Then I would finish doing that, go off to sixth form, go off to school, go to school, do the full day at school, thinking that I stank of fish because I could smell the fish even though nobody else could. And then in the afternoon, the evening, I'd go off to the local wimpy restaurant where I would become a, well, first of all, I was washing dishes, then I would serve people food, and then I helped cook a little bit. And I enjoyed that very much because it was a bit of a freedom thing. I then started going to sixth form and thinking that I'd have a career as possibly a doctor. That was what I really wanted to do. Sadly, that wasn't meant to be because my parents had decided to buy a second home that they couldn't really afford, and that the only way that they could afford that was for me to go and work a full-time job and get paid proper money. So I left school and I became what's called a market analyst for a market research company on Hanger Lane gyratory system in West London. That was a very interesting job and very challenging, especially for a teenager, really, who hadn't really experienced life, hadn't really experienced being in the general world, because my life just consisted of going to work, or existed in going to school, or existed in going to church. And none of those things prepared me for life. Life suddenly became very difficult, and I didn't know what to do with myself because I didn't know even how to talk to other people. I found myself very much alone because I left home shortly after I'd started a full-time job, because I found that I had enough money to actually realize my escape plan. We talked the other week on this show about the American dream. I, for a long time, had dreamt about leaving home and running off to America as some naive child. If I'm honest, I used to lie in bed thinking about killing certain people in my family. And not just in very nice ways, but in very bad ways, because I had a lot of hate, a lot of difficulties with the things that were happening to me. And I was struggling to figure a way out to solve those problems. So I spent a number of years with my diabetes, which most people know that I have, I have a very strange type of diabetes. It's type 1 diabetes, but it's brittle type 1 diabetes, which basically means that it's impossible to control. It ends up with some complications. We'll cover those in a minute. But one of the complications is that you become depressed very easily. You have a lot of mental anguish and difficulties, and if something happens, you tend to focus that in on yourself, because it's just the way that the chemistry works in your body and your brain, and it doesn't really work very well. So I had a few things to deal with. I had a lot of pain existing from when I was at home. I had a lot of pain existing from trying to be alive and trying to kill myself, because I didn't know what the point to my life was. I didn't realize what the importance of me was. I'd already been told that I was not important. I was always told that I didn't matter. I was always punished for things that I didn't even think that I'd done anything wrong. And I just didn't think that I was worth living for, really. Didn't have any friends because I'd left home, and the friends that I sort of had, they didn't stay in touch. It's not like today where there's the internet. It was just literally I left southeast London and went to West London. It wasn't easy to stay in touch with those people. So I moved on and life carried on. I tried committing suicide a number of times, quite a few more times, and some more times. And I still survived. Instead of lying in bed thinking about how I wanted to kill my parents, I would then lie in bed thinking about how I wanted to kill myself. So life carried on. Did some various jobs, some of which contribute to where I've ended up with my position for creating Kudos. I got involved with the girl, and I left London and moved up to Manchester, and that girlfriend became pregnant, and we had some difficulties and we split up. And then my daughter was born, and my daughter, I saw her for the first 2 years of her life, and then there was some difficulties with that partner, and then I haven't seen her for 18 years since. I'm talking about these things because I need people to understand why it is that I do what I do, why I'm not going to back down from what I do. I need people to understand that I'm not me in the sense of just understanding what I've been through. I understand what a lot of people have been through, because I've been through a lot of things. And that's not because it's a competition of how many things have you been through or how difficult have those things been. It's about me explaining who I am now. Because, and I say this quite often, I'm a very different person to the person that I used to be. And I hope that other people, if they've been through things as well, they can be different to the things that they feel have impacted their life and maybe have impacted them in a negative way. And they feel some degree of hatred or some degree of dissatisfaction with the way that life has treated them, or the hand that they've been dealt, or whatever it is that they feel, because we all feel different things. I've felt various things over the years. So that's why I'm explaining some of these things. So what other things are there? Well, after I left Manchester, where that happened, I continued with various jobs and did various things and learned various skills and became a better person in some ways. In other ways, not. I still continue to wish that I was dead, especially because I'd lost my daughter, and I didn't ever see that happening to be able to get to see her again. I moved around the country a little bit, floating around from job to job. I was quite successful at the jobs because I like to put in effort and I like to work. I always have, and I always will do. I do extremely long hours, and some people question whether I get tired from doing it. Well, hell yeah, I get tired. Trust me, everybody gets tired, whether you work 4 hours, 10 hours, 16 hours a day, whatever it is, everybody gets tired, especially if you're not well. And I'm still not well. So I continued and did various jobs and poodled around the country. I settled in a place, and I thought I was pretty much stuck there. It got to the extent where things were pretty bad again. Got involved with some bad people who they're into drugs and stuff, and I decided to try that because, well, what else was there at that point? Not a lot. I then realised that that was not going anywhere. I'd got myself into a dead-end position, and I'd been talking to my mum, and I resolved in my mind that even though she was potentially innocent of things, I would forgive her if she wasn't innocent of those things. And I would try and move on with my life and go and try and start at least to interact with my family, because I'd lost contact with my daughter, and I realised my mum had lost contact with me. Maybe that was a bit unfair for her. So I moved back home and spent some time with my mum. I met my next partner, who I was with for a fair number of years. She had some children, and unfortunately I got more sick because of my diabetes, and I started to get into myself and exist in pain and depression and not feeling good or happy or content with life. I miss my daughter because that partner's children had become like my children, especially the boy who become like my son. And in many respects, he was more like my son than my partner's son, because I was ill, I was spending time at home, and this little boy was like part of me. So life got worse, like I say, because I got more depressed, because I missed my daughter because of being around the child and missing my true child. And also because my illness was getting worse. I started to lose my sight. I developed strange pains that really nobody understands what they are. The doctors won't even investigate anymore because it's not understandable what those things are. And even if it is understandable, they're not going to cover what that is, because there's no advantage to medicine in that sense for me. They started giving me painkillers, which affected me. I became addicted to morphine, and I was taking Oromorph at first, which is oral morphine for people who don't know. And then I started taking morphine tablets. And then I started taking morphine tablets with Oromorph. Then that wasn't enough, so I then started on fentanyl patches. And fentanyl patches come in these little patches at first, and the patches get bigger and bigger and bigger until they cover large areas of your shoulders, because that's where they put them, on your shoulders. And both of my shoulders were covered in these things, and I was still taking morphine on top. And there wasn't anything more that I could do to try and numb the pain. So my eyes got worse, and I needed an operation. I'd had a few already, but I went into hospital for one particular operation, and that was on my right eye. I'm constantly reminded about that currently, because my right eye, you might be able to see it drifts off to the right. It's because it turns up, but it doesn't work. so it's sort of a bit lazy and goes off to the side, and I look, to me, a bit like a stupid pirate who's looking off to the side behind his patch. Everybody else just sees the pirate. I see my eye going off to the side, and I have to try and pull it back in. So sometimes I go a bit quiet during the odd conversation because I realize that, and I try and pull it in, and that requires a bit of brain work to be able to do that. And then I see myself trying to squint to pull it back in, and I think, oh, I need to stop doing that. I went into hospital, I had that operation. They call that a vitrectomy. Basically, when you get diabetes, your eyes develop new blood vessels in the back of them. Over time, they become weak. They then bleed into your vitreous fluid, which is what fills your eyeball. And then they do a little operation to extract that vitreous fluid, and you can see again. It's not a big thing. That's not the problem. Problem for that operation was that somebody messed up and damaged the lens in my right eye. So they then took that lens out of my eye and left me without one. Problem being that I have brittle type 1 diabetes, which leads to some complications. Like I said before, one of those complications is that diabetics in general don't heal very quickly. I heal much more slowly. So what happened was that my eye sealed up. For people who don't know, your eye is pressurized. And what happens is that your eye will release some gas over time, and fluid, and your eye will regulate itself to correct pressure. But my eye wasn't doing that because it was sealed up. So that developed into something called an iris bomba. Iris meaning eye, bomba meaning something akin to bomb or hand grenade. Because over time, my eye wanted to explode, and left for much longer than what it was, it would have exploded. I spent 6 days in hospital with pain that was pretty much at the level of being tortured by one of the 3-letter agencies who torture people, allegedly. I was screaming, not in the sense of, ow, that hurts. I was screaming at the top of my voice like I had never screamed before. I wanted to commit suicide in ways that I had never dreamt of before. I literally just wanted everything to end. And if there was even a piece of plastic cutlery given to me, I would have used that. The doctors and nurses couldn't really do anything for me because I was on morphine and fentanyl. And there wouldn't really be any use to giving me anything more because it wouldn't have any effect. So the only kind of treatment they could give me was to fill a plastic glove, a rubber glove, whatever they are, vinyl gloves, with cold water for me to hold on the side of my face. My diabetes was going through the roof because I was stressed, and that's what happens with brittle type 1 diabetes. You then develop something called ketoacidosis. Ketoacidosis is basically your body deciding to attack your body and use it for energy instead of your sugar in your blood. Problem with that is that ketoacidosis, like the end of the name implies, is acid that builds up in your body. The acid is a byproduct of your body eating itself to try and give you energy. Anybody hurt themselves with acid will tell you that really hurts. Having acid in your blood really hurts. It's not a very nice experience, and it's quite dangerous. Highly dangerous. So the doctors didn't really care about my eye. They really cared about the diabetes and trying to get that under control because that's the usual course of action. And the problem is I just had an eye operation, and I was telling them, and so was my partner at the time, who was a matron in a private hospital, that I'd just been for an eye operation, and it was probably that was causing the distress and the pain and the wanting to kill myself, but nobody was listening. So 6 days I spent doing that, with my eye slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, until eventually my partner phoned a doctor who actually worked in the same hospital, but worked at her private hospital, at 8 o'clock in the evening, and asked him if he would come and have a look at my eye. So this doctor did the right thing and came in, realised that I had this iris bomber thing, and put some drops in my eye, which sort of started helping me a little bit. The following morning, he then put 3 holes with a laser into my iris to release the pressure, and that really solved the problem a lot. Other than I was still pretty much couldn't see out of the eye because there was no lens, and I was pretty much in a very, very bad state. I ended up with PTSD for 5 years, and life went downhill for a little while. I was still on the morphine and the fentanyl. My left eye had a bleed as well, so I couldn't see out of that, and I was pretty much 98% blind. That was the low point. So time went by and they did an operation on the left eye, and I could see out of the left eye reasonably well again. I decided that I'd had enough, but not in the sense of wanting to try and commit suicide again, in the sense of I've survived. There's a reason for that. I need to figure out what that reason is, and I need to figure out how I'm going to do that, because I've survived so far. I need to make changes. So I set about trying to make changes and understand how to make those changes, and then what I was going to do to enable myself to get better, because the only other option was to continue to be ill, and being ill on morphine, going blind, the potential for a very uncomfortable life filled with pain, because by that point the morphine and the fentanyl just wasn't working. It was either put up and shut up, find a way to fight, or just give in. So I decided to try and fight. So I looked into medical research. There wasn't much. I found some things that helped me. I'm not going to talk about those things because they're not medically proven, and that's part of the issue. So for 5 years I had PTSD. I didn't take any other antidepressants or antipsychotic drugs. I literally decided that I was going to be happier, and I figured out ways to make that happen. I wasn't happy in my relationship, so I ended that. I wasn't happy with where I was living, so I moved. I wasn't happy on the drugs that they were giving me for certain things, so I stopped taking those and found alternative medication that worked much better. That isn't illicit drugs, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. It's just vitamin B1, just in a different form, and something called moringa. So I have what's called gastroparesis as well. I haven't mentioned that yet. Gastroparesis means that I am sick quite a lot, or at least I used to be. Nowadays, I'm just sick in the morning at about 5-6 o'clock. I'm not always sick, but I'm always retching at least. And I spend most of my day feeling very sick. And if I go on things like a train, then the train wobbles about. You probably can't feel that because your body's moving constantly. Your stomach's constantly moving. My stomach doesn't move, so I feel that because it feels strange. And when you feel sick and you have motion sickness on top of that, it's not very good. So I still have a number of problems, like I get around on a wheelchair, I'm still partially sighted, I have this gastroparesis thing, and my brittle type 1 diabetes still exists. And it's still difficult to control, but not as bad as it used to be due to a number of factors. I decided that I was going to figure out how to make a change for myself that would mean that I could be relieved of some of these difficulties. And how would I do that? And I'd before I finished work 10 years before, come up with the thing that I wanted to do, and I'd started doing, but I wasn't able to fulfill that because I'd gotten too ill. That thing was Kudos. First rule of Kudos is don't tell anybody what Kudos is, and I'm not going to tell anybody what Kudos is. I'm just going to say that it's very beneficial for all of us. So I decided that I was going to do Kudos, and I decided that that would enable me to find a way to make substantial amounts of money, but not for me, not in the sense of if I raise £1 million, I can pay to have this, that, or the other done medically to me. No. I thought about how to make everybody better because I was fed up of being ill. I was fed up of being controlled. I was fed up of being addicted to drugs that were just making me worse. I was fed up of being miserable, not having any money, not having any life. I'd been living with pain. I'd been living with suicide. I'd lost a number of people that I hadn't wanted to lose. All things that a lot of people experience. My medical conditions, well, diabetes is like a worldwide pandemic where there's so many people who suffer from it. It's unbelievable. And yet we pour money into that left, right, and centre. We get appointments with medical professionals that tell us how to look after that. And those things all across the world add up to a lot of money. And yet here we are many years since we realised what diabetes is, and we're no closer to actually getting it sorted out. But there are things that can be done on a very simple and cost-effective way to help to remedy or at least help people with diabetes. But we're not told about those things because there's no money in that for Big Pharma. So I set about thinking about how to create a solution that answers many of our problems. And I created the solution, which was Kudos. And then I set about thinking about what problems it could solve. I then thought about some other problems that existed and how the solution was applicable to those things as well. Because I don't tend to think about the problems first, I tend to think about the solution and then what that can be applied to in order to provide an answer to problems. So I have an answer that will help people, will help an economy, will help good causes, because I don't need to live in 20 houses all across the world, all of which have more bedrooms than I would know what to do with, and live in those for 3 weeks of each year. That's what those people do. Or they disappear off in spaceships to fly closer to the moon to see whether it's made out of cheese or not. I have a very strong belief that people are the thing that matters. I had a friend that I had a chat with today, and I talked about the way that I see the world and the way that I think that the world needs to change, and the way that the world has always been, the way that the world is now, and the way that the future is, and how that benefits everybody. That isn't what Kudos is, so I can tell you about that. So I grew up in a Christian background where that was one person, Jesus. Some people would call him more than a person. I'm just going to call him a person because I believe that he was a person. Jesus was one, and Jesus was able to save everybody. So that's one for everybody. Currently, we don't operate on that system as a society, but we operated like that for a long time. We operated on the belief in religion, and we caused many wars and spilt a lot of innocent blood because of religion. And I'm not holding Jesus responsible for those wars. I hold people responsible for those wars and the things that those wars and difficulties caused. Now, we moved on from there because most people started moving away from religion and technology blossomed. And when that blossomed, it changed the world. We currently live in a system that is not about everybody being rescued by one person. We live in a world that everybody is serving a few people. We're all digital slaves or exploited for our data. We all conform to the laws and regulations that control us. We all take medicine that powers these big organizations. And we fund those things through our brain power now rather than our sweat and our toil that we did in the past when we were slaves as people to the rich people. Instead, now we're slaves digitally, and in terms of our thoughts, we don't do so much hard work and slaving around, dragging stones around, or building roads. What we do is we create data, and big companies get rich off of that in different ways. So that's the way the world was. One person or a few people, if you look at different religions, and many people benefiting from that one person. Through to now, where there's many people who are benefiting a few people because they're the ones who have all of the resource and revenue and power. So what about the future? Well, the future for me is about everybody benefiting everybody. I call that social benefit networks, and I have a number of solutions for some of the big problems, because I think that people are the key. And you'll read my little hashtag that you see anywhere that I make a post or send a message to people, which is "You are the miracle," because that's what I believe. Because, like I said before, I'm not just me. I see me as many other people. I talk to a lot of people. I've talked to many of the people possibly who are watching this. And the thing is that most of those people, when we talk, they understand that I understand them. I listen to them. I have time to listen to them. And I listen to their problems and I understand their problems. Not necessarily directly. Maybe there's something that I've not experienced, but I can relate because I'm a human being. Because I have time to listen and understand what's causing them pain, what's causing them difficulties, what's controlling them, manipulating them, or stopping them from being the thing that they want to be. So I believe in people, and I believe that people are the answer going forwards. And that is why my hashtag is "You are the miracle." Because the simple answer is that when we take back control, which is very easy and possible to do now, we can actually live our lives and bring about our miracles. We can be free from the things that currently enslave us in their different guises, whether that be medication that is keeping us in our sick beds, food that's putting us in those sick beds, the data that we create and is taken from us and used to make big companies rich, or whether it's just the fact that we're told all the time that we hate each other. I've hated people in the past. I don't generally hate everybody, but that's what I'm told everywhere that I look, is that I hate other people. I hate them because they're a different sex to me, a different color to me, a different size to me. They've got 2 eyes that work. They've got no eyes that work. They sit in a wheelchair 24 hours a day, or they are able to run around and walk. I did both of those things. I spend time in a wheelchair and I walk around, but I can't run. So theoretically, I hate able-bodied people and I hate disabled people, except I don't. I love everybody. I spend all day trying to figure out ways to make what I want to happen, because I love everybody. I don't believe in hate. I talk to people, and generally people don't hate other people. Some people don't really like themselves anymore because we keep getting told that we hate other people. And so we end up hating ourselves because we think we're the bad ones for doing that. except we don't, or at least most of us don't. So I wanted to explain about why it is that I'm doing what I'm doing. Kind of explain that, or at least I have in my mind. Probably most people are even more confused now than what they were before. What I need to tell people is that I am fed up of losing people. I'm fed up of people being sick. I'm fed up of people not having enough. People message me. I know people who are sick, some of them dying. Some of them have lost people who are now dead. I mean, there's no way to stop some of that, but we can make things a bit better than what they are now. And we can stop spilling innocent blood of people at the expense of trying to make money for a few people. We see it in not necessarily mainstream news, but we see it in the news all the time. We drive down the streets that we live near, and we see people living in tents or worse. We go to the shops and we can't buy the food that we want, either because it's not there or because it's too expensive. We go online to do some shopping and we end up being exploited for the data that we use to do our shopping. In fact, in some instances, we can't even do our shopping unless we've inputted all of our data to get to that point. And in other circumstances, we're just using something and all of our data is being taken without our permission. So I hold a key to some of the answers to some of those questions because I've figured out the solution to those problems. I'm not giving up because I don't want to lose any more people. I don't want to be ill anymore. I have an option. I can just laze around in bed 24 hours a day like I have in the past and just wallow in self-pity and pain. Or I can get up and I can actually make changes. Question is, am I the only person who's wanting to do that? Well, where I live at the moment, I've tried to make those changes. I've tried to get help, tried to get support. And not because my idea is bad or people can't see the point to it or the advantage to what I offer, because I speak to people locally. I speak to real people and they see that. They see the answers that I give as genuinely true and beneficial to them as people. But the people who are supposed to support me, my country, my government, the people who are supposed to give me a way to move forwards with my life from being long-term unemployed and disabled with a very innovative idea and a very beneficial idea, those people turn their backs on me and don't answer the phone and give me reports that tell me you can't do what you want to do, Matthew. There's already people doing that, even though there isn't. And then they tell me, well, those people that are doing that, they're big companies, Matthew. You don't stand a chance of changing them. But they don't understand what I've been through. They don't understand what we've all been through. They don't understand what we stand to lose if we don't make changes and we start loving each other and bringing love to the table and start talking about love instead of hate and war, and instead bring peace and joy and benefit to everybody. So you might see me on LinkedIn. You might think, this guy's doing a lot. Maybe he needs to take a break. Trust me, I don't, because I'm not going to. No matter what, I'm going to make this happen. There's people who want to make it happen, and I want those people to help me. If you're one of those people, I want you to help me, because we're all helping each other, not just me. So that's the message for this evening. That's who I am and why I do what I do. Makes perfect sense to me. Who knows what everybody else thinks? I hope they believe a little bit of what we're hoping to do. I just wanted to end with a small thing. I'm not looking for pity. I'm not looking for people to look at me and think, oh, he's got a bit of a wonky eye. He's going around in a wheelchair. He needs a bit of help. That's not what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for pity. I'm not asking for people to look at me and think this guy needs some help. I'm looking for people to understand that we all need help because we all have some degree of a problem and we all need to find a way to benefit each other, love each other, give instead of take. So that's what I wanted to say. So on with the cheering up. Who can I bring in that's going to put a smile on my face other than my good friend Marcus? Hello, brother. You're on mute, by the way.
Yeah, I know you caught me off guard. I was taking notes and drying up my eyes, brother. I'm speechless. Like, I'm gonna say this though, and I'm not talking to Matt. I'm talking to the people who's watching. It was maybe 4 weeks back.
Yeah.
Was it 4 weeks back? I was supposed to go from Arizona to LA, and suddenly I didn't have enough cash flow with me, and I was supposed to meet my mentor. Everybody said no to me, and this guy, no blink, no shadow of a doubt, asked for my information to send me the $500 that I needed at the time to meet my coach, to meet my mentor. And last night I just discovered that he's been saving that up for a long, long time.
You see the hand? You know what that means?
I'm just gonna say,
No.
amazing.
Okay, so don't make me mute you now. Right? Amber.
Yes.
How are you?
Pretty good.
He has a good heart.
You
That's
just
what I'm saying.
threw me on here, and Matt, I have to say, like I'm like Marcus. Like I had traumatic events with the church growing up. My parents were good people, but they didn't have the tools to raise me the way they needed to. Suicidal ideation is something that I have suffered since I was 9. I have tried to take my life at least a dozen times. The closest I ever came, I coded twice and was admitted to a psychiatric facility when I was a teenager. And I think I'm past that. I still struggle with it. I think there's something to your neural pathways and that I have an issue with. We were taught in my family, you don't ask for help ever. It was better to be dead than to ask for help. That was admitting weakness. And so whenever you had a problem, you didn't talk about it. If you had pain, you didn't talk about it. If you were sad, you didn't talk about it. And I was exploding on the inside and needed a place to let that out. So moving forward, now where I'm at, and I see this in you, Matt, is that we've been beat up and pushed down and squashed. And most people would not be able to get back up in those positions and the things that we've gone through. But we do it anyway. And we don't even do it for ourselves. We do it for other people because we don't want anybody else to feel that shitty, to feel that low, to feel that alone. And that was the reason why I walked from religion, honestly, was that my suicidal ideation had been so bad for so many years. And I like prayed and prayed and prayed, like, please, please take this. I want to die every minute of the day away from me. Like, just take it away. I don't get why I feel this way. And I have turned that. And I think people who have been squashed that little, I think that's what fuels us to want to help so much. I mean, my ideas are not small ideas. I want to flip the entire American healthcare system on its head. That's not small. Your idea here with Kudos is not small. And I don't know that people who haven't been through so much can honestly grasp that or even want to give back to other people at the level that you and I do to make sure that no one else feels the way that we did as children.
Yeah.
So that's my little thing for you. And yeah, like we've talked about your medical, but we had not gone through all of that. And I'm like Marcus back here trying not to cry. And waving it off and drying it up before you bring me on camera. But yes, I mean, seriously, like it is your physical health. I mean, just everything that you went through. I want to go back and hug the little Matt, if that makes sense. I want to go back and hug the little me and say, it's absolutely okay. You will get over this shit. It may be absolutely miserable right now, but one step at a time.
Yeah.
Put one foot in front of the other. You will get there. And kudos, that's the reason why I believe in kudos. You have this mission to make things better for everyone. It's not a one-sided, you want it. You want everyone to have better. And I think we need more people like that. That's what drew me to your group the first time when you had Clifford and Jason on with you, was just this compassion that y'all all held for everyone. You want positive change, and we need positive change. And like you said, everybody's talking about hate. Everybody's talking, and that's not us talking about it. It's the media saying that we hate. It's the politicians saying that we hate. It's social media at times saying that we hate. And I am very angry at things that are going on here in the States. I'm very angry at some of my politicians, but I don't hate them, because hating them is not going to get us anywhere. In fact, I hold more compassion for those people because you are so narrow-minded. You are so small-minded. You do not see the harms that you are doing to other people.
Yeah.
And I hold space that one day they can grow enough and see that, because we need the change. The two Justins that were kicked out last week, they won and they came back. And I think that's kind of a testament to this younger generation that we have that kind of sees they want change, but my generation kind of sat on their thumbs. My mother's generation sat on their thumbs. We said we were making change, but we didn't actually make change. And they are moving. And so seeing those two men get back into their positions gives me hope that we are, as a society, we are getting back to, you know what? We used to all care about one another. We used to care whether or not the kid on the corner was hungry. The guy living in a tent at the edge of your town, you went and gave him extra supplies. Like, how can I help you? Can I help you line up with the shelter? Like, what do you need? We used to all care about what was going on around us.
Yeah.
And I feel like the last 10 to 20 years, we kind of went into this, we put on our blinders and said, it's just me. It's just my life. It's just this little sect. What affects me? And that's all I'm going to worry about. But everything that we do ripples out to everybody else. So if you're not worried about what's happening to anybody else on the outside, you are actually actively giving them harm. So my thoughts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to agree. I only see solutions. I no longer look at problems, because looking at problems is what everybody does. We just sit around and think, oh yeah, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. And it just turns into a constant battle of what's the next thing that is not good.
Right.
We need to make change. And everybody keeps saying, oh, change is coming and we need to make change. And what's the change? I don't know. What the change be? Well, I'll tell
It
you
just
what.
means action. It's action. Like, I mean, at this point, that's what change would be. Instead of being a mouthpiece, action. So you setting up your plan, me actually pushing to get this done. Everybody in their own little corner pushing for change, saying that we're not going to sit here anymore. And I heard somebody talking about the younger generation and how they're so offended so easily by things. And I thought, well, part of that is because they've been given so many empty promises.
Yeah.
I was given empty promises, but I didn't figure it out till my mid-30s.
Yeah.
Our kids are seeing those empty promises while they're still in school. And they're angry at the adults in the room aren't listening and aren't doing what they need. And we're not going to be here as long as they are. They have longer here. And so they're seeing, okay, so if you don't care about what's going on with me, we're 20 years behind fixing a problem that y'all aren't going to have to deal with because you're dead. But we will. The next generation will. And that will be their problem to fix. And they're tired of, honestly, that problem being passed from one generation down to the next. Because we have ignored it. We have not fixed it. We've not done
anything. It has literally run away with us whilst we sit there and look at it happen.
The gaps only got bigger. I mean, the gaps really only have gotten bigger, especially in the last 20 years.
So what you're talking about really is the legacy that we leave behind, and not just us in the sense of older people, but younger people as well. Like
Right.
we're all people. It doesn't matter how old or young we are. I've seen children doing wonderful things that impact older people. And we should all work together to do something different. And all that we need to do is find a way to do that. And there isn't many of them. There are people trying to do things,
Right.
but let's just stop trying. Let's stop looking at small problems and find a big solution that solves some of those problems by making proper change. Because change is coming, which is what people keep saying, but it's about whether it's going to be a positive change or whether it's going to be one that's forced on us, which tend not to be so positive, do they?
No, I'm really hoping that's not a forced negative. But I feel like, again, because we have this younger generation that is so unhappy, so unsatisfied with the fact that we haven't changed, I think that gives them more momentum to get to the ballot box. I think it gives them more momentum when they invest, when they spend their money. They really spend their money in employers and corporations that are putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
They're not empty. I mean, they are thinking these things that honestly in my 20s, I didn't think of.
Yeah.
I didn't think of where you were putting your money. I just needed that product. And these kids think, because I've got 3 of them, and they think entirely different. Like every time I go to the store, we can't buy that brand anymore. They're doing this or they've done that. And I mean, I am okay, change that on the grocery list, something else in place of that one. And that's what it is. It's about what those brands stand for. And we are getting, I think, closer where some corporations are beginning to actually put their money where their mouth is. So instead of saying, hey, I support Pride Month and I'm just going to put a rainbow plaid on June, now they're doing it year round. Or don't put the Pride flag out on your advertisement in June and then give the money to the conservatives who are going against those agendas. Like, you need to put your money where your mouth is. So that money should be invested into those people, and you should be investing into the politicians that are going to back those changes, not the opposite side. And I think sometimes they're trying to play like this balance game. And we've been so unbalanced for so long. There is no righting that ship. We just need to stop investing into what is harming other people.
Yeah.
And I will say in the US that a lot of one side of the political party wants to put oppressions and wants to put harms on other people, whereas the other party is about everybody having a seat, everybody having access, everybody having their rights. So, and I don't think that's been quite as clear between political parties before. I feel like right now we are at a difference because I was a Republican for years and left that party. I'm disgusted by that party now. But we weren't as mean and divided. And it really, the political divide that we have now is it's just nasty. And if you suck into that, if you are, and like I am, I want political change. I want political change because I'm into health advocacy, and politicians write the rules that are hurting or helping the people that I advocate for. So I have to pay attention to what the politicians are doing. And I don't want to because it's toxic. I was going to work for subcommittees to help write health reforms. But again, that environment is so toxic. I don't want to live that day in and day out. But we do need to address it. And I think that is where we finally are getting to a point that people are saying, maybe not the politics and the politicians, that the actual people are saying that this is polarizing and this is not. This is hurting people. This is not. And that there's a very clear divide. And I think, like you said, whether it's negative or positive, I feel like we've been kind of drifting into the negative enough that everybody's gone, whoa, pump the brakes. I don't want to go there.
Yep.
I think that's why our election turned around in 2020. And I feel like as much as they keep trying to pull here, I feel like that's why we keep kind of getting little leverages further and further up on the other side, is because, again, it's discriminatory. Like I just today, there's a guy out there talking about how children should get married at 12.
Okay.
That's not, you get what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's where we're at. Like, anything that they do is just about this is my idea. This is what I want to do. And I'm not thinking about the people that I'm hurting at all. And I think we need to get back to that, like I said, I feel like this younger generation coming into the politics, I think that's where they're at. They are looking at people. They are addressing those issues. And they're actually, the reason why they got kicked out in Tennessee was because they were trying to address the issues, not sugarcoat them, not distract over here on something that won't do anything for the people, but they actually wanted to give change for their constituents. And I think that's something, a difference that I'm hoping we'll see globally. Just because I feel like I do see that in like the UK and in the Asiatic nations, like the younger generations are, everybody's kind of waking up. And I don't know if that's the social media that they're able to access all this information that when I was going through school, you didn't have the internet. You couldn't look up things. I had no clue what was going on anywhere around the world unless I went to my library, looked it up in a library card, and then looked it up in the periodicals. I mean, it was so different than the instant access of information that we have. And those kids are willing to go dig that information out and hold it up and hold people accountable.
Yeah.
So I hope we are moving into a positive shift. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I refuse to give up hope. I just, no matter what, that's always got me through. I don't have faith, but I have hope. I have hope that there is change. I have hope that there is a better tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Probably not. Could it be the next day? I don't know. But the day after that, I have no guarantee. And I refuse to say it won't be. Absolutely.
So I would say that change is not necessarily coming through political avenues, because we only get to vote every so often.
Right.
So that is time constraint. Okay. Now, from my point of view, the reason why Kudos, and I'm not here to badger what Kudos is. What I'm here saying is that we need to think of a different solution than using the medium that we're given, which is politics.
Right.
Because in some ways, democracy is not democracy anymore. In some ways, that machine, that mechanism is flaunted as something that is correct when it's appropriate to the right side that wants it to be correct. And when it's not suitable for them, they say, oh, that was dabbled with, that was not what it was supposed to be, and so we need to do a recount, or we think this is the right outcome, so that's what we want to push, or we'll have a war until we end up with the democratic decision that we want to push. And that costs lives, and that again spills innocent blood. We find ways that we can control the actual story because we control the money. And like you said, the youngsters nowadays, they're choosing things that make sensible choices. They make choices buying from companies that they know are trustworthy.
They're activists. I mean, they're activists. They really are. I mean, I saw my daughter's class, my youngest, when she graduated, the valedictorian got up there and his speech was that at the very beginning of their freshman year, they had been pulled in like a month into school because they were rowdy. They were a little loud. And so they were she was giving them a lesson. And y'all need to behave. No class has ever been as rowdy and as wild as y'all are. You need to listen to your teachers. But they pushed this oneness, this, you need to stand out. You need to compete against your classmates. And their speech at the end was, we refused. We refused because we realized we needed to be a team, that we would get a lot further if we build up those people who were in the lower sections and we all rose together. And he was like, and you can tell us all you want that we're supposed to be individuals, but when I go to college, I'm going to be put on teams and I'm going to have to work with them. When I go to work, I'm going to be put on teams and expected to work with them. My community is a team. My home is a team. So why are we teaching people to be individualistic and to be selfish instead of, hey, help out your teammates?
Yeah.
And that, I would say that is something else about that generation. They are very much about, we will help everyone. We're not going to let you walk over this particular people or this particular people. Heck no. We're going to stand up for everybody. They are, my kids, that generation are, I'm so excited. Like, it's given me the most hope I've probably had in 15 years of politicians. The ones that we've got coming in now, like, finally.
And I just want to say, like, can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to say, like, to touch base on what you guys were talking about is, like, Amber, you're right. The information is out there. right? Everyone has so much access to so much information, and I think what we need to be aware of is this informations are only valuable depending on how we use it.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going through right now is also the way we see the problem or the solution instead, is because we have been through excruciating pain, if I may say, lack of word, that
Hmm.
we don't wish it to anyone,
Yeah.
because we know how it feels, and that's literally empathy right there, is putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Like, you may have an idea of how someone may feel, but you really don't until you experience the thing that they experienced.
Yeah.
That's what shapes us. And at the same time, I think competitiveness is good only if it's through growth. What do I mean by that? Is without competitive, how are you growing? But at
Right.
least it's not sacrificing your teammate, like you said. It's a team
Hmm.
effectiveness. And so I I have to agree with everything that you guys have said, and I want to say thank you for this opportunity. Matt, I think Anastasia wants to say something before we dip out.
Oh, please, please.
Yeah, but I disagree with everything. And Marcus agree with everything. Somebody has to disagree. Hey, your battery need to charge your phone. So I want to celebrate Matt, for sharing your story, because I know that it is your personal breakthrough to what all those things you want to achieve with your voice, with your energy, your presence online. And when I first heard your story on Monday, my first thought was, wow, I hope you are sharing this story with others, because of that explain everything why you do what you are doing. And so many, like, I felt so much more connected with you when you shared it, because it's relatable, and also it bring awareness on that we are that every single experience in our life is for that there is a different meaning that we can see in the very moment of pain, like, like
Yeah.
connecting the dots. You can only connect them from the past, and that's what you are doing, that we need that experience of pain and suffering, so we can find a meaning in that and realize that pain is necessary for growth.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm going to jump from, right, make something stupid, like jump from a cliff, but it means that I can connect with another human being, and that's what you do with the Kudos. And that's what I wanted to share as a way of reinforcing you sharing your story publicly. Yes, I love it. And I'm so blessed that I met you, because you already changed the way I see problems as a bigger picture, like a galaxy, not like not as I used to see. And the connection you're creating, like we met on Monday and you connected me with, like, now I know Amber, and it's just
A miracle.
miracle. Yes, I was looking for the word.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we get any more gushy, it's time that we hung up because it's a bit late. Probably everybody's getting, well, I'm getting tired. I know that much. So I'm just going to say thank you to anybody who stuck around to the end. I want to say thank you to you guys and to Marcus. Amber, every time that you come along, I feel as though you've added so much more to what I can say, because you say things so much better than me. And then,
Thank you.
then
Which
Anastasia,
I had one more thought to you to say to that, based on what Anastasia was saying. So when we're thinking about what we're doing, our impact, I'm into like the nerdy documentaries, and one of my favorites that I've seen in the last year is called Fantastic Fungi, and it talks about the mycelium and how all these mushrooms are interconnected underneath the earth, and how they create these huge, vast webs of connections. And whether it's connected to the trees, connected to the grass, connected to other mushrooms, to other fungi, like they're connected to everything. And I feel like that is part of our problem, is that we've cut ourselves off from one another. And if we were looking at everybody as a whole, we wouldn't make those choices that we keep making that hurt other people. Like if we always looked at, okay, am I hurting anybody when I make this decision? I don't think we'd be in the same place that we are now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'll just finish that off.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that I connect to, I send them a video. And that video is the snow video about the snowflakes and how they build up into a bigger thing.
Yep.
And they build up into a snowball, and then they build up into the little snowman at the end. And then there's the little girl who stood next to them. And some people know this because, like, I've said it to a few people before. But at the end of that video, there's the snowman, which represents the connections that we make, the legacy that we are leaving, the social benefit network thing that I'm hoping to do. That's what I see. That's what Kudos is a thing where we connect to each other and we form something that is valuable to the future. And that little girl who's jumping up and down and so excited about the snowman is like the future us. The us that is tomorrow, the day after, whenever that happens, that is us. Whether that's in the future, in a few days, or the legacy of legacy further down the line, where we're not about how do we create war and take something off of other people, but how do we connect and how do we give something to other people and all benefit together. And that's exactly what you're talking about in the sense of communing and being together. It doesn't distract from the fact that we are all individuals.
Right.
It's that we're individual amongst our community. And that's the important thing. It's something better for us, something better for our friends and families, and something better for our communities, and something better for the world, because we all need that now and forever. So we'll leave it on that. Anybody wants to connect to anybody, please do. If you don't know the people here, connect to me and I'll connect you to them. Thank you very much, ladies and Marcus. Been a pleasure as always. See you again. Bye.
How was it?